You might have to catch a plane for this. You gon' have to say my name for this.
What is the deal, beautiful people? My name is Ramon. This is Lifestyles Defined, and on this channel, we talk about technology all day, every day. Today's topic is the OnePlus 6. Sounds like a bit of a math problem, but this is the follow-up to the wildly popular OnePlus 5 and the OnePlus 5T. I have some mixed feelings on this phone, but before I get into that, I guess we should do the house cleaning and sort of just get a lot of the obvious out of the way. The design, I think, is as good as ever. I think it's their best designed phone to date, and I think it stands up well against some of the heavy hitters in the market, like the Samsungs, the Apples, and even like the Huawei's and whatnot. I think it's a beautifully designed phone. So you've got that large slab of glass on the front, and that's dope. Then off to the right, you've got that volume switch, or they call it the alert switch. I've always liked that, and I wish I had it on some of my other phones. To the bottom, surprise, surprise, is a headphone jack. You got to talk about that these days in design. Kind of sad that's where we're at. And then to the back, you have the dual camera cluster, and then the fingerprint reader right under that. It's kind of in the middle of the phone where it should be. So that's cool. I think they covered all their bases there in terms of design. Coming down to the specs, I think they also did a baseline really good job here. There isn't much to complain about. So yes, there's this 6.2, this massive 6.2 inch display. Yes, there is a notch. And you guys know I'm not a fan of notches, but it is what it is. And from looking at all the videos that's been released of this thing, I have not gotten my hands on it yet. This notch seems to be a lot smaller than some of the other notches. And I can tell you for a fact, and this is something I spoke about in my iPhone 10 review. After a while, you just sort of ignore the notch. It just becomes part of the using a phone and the experience. And if you can become accustomed to the notch, the obnoxious notch on the iPhone 10, no doubt you'll be okay with the notch here. My argument to these notches has always been Apple had a very specific reason why there's a notch. Most, if not all, of these copycats cannot come up with a good reason or explanation for why that notch exists, and so you're just a copycat. Whatever, the notch is there. The only knock against the display, however, is it's not like a 2K or a Quad HD display that we would see on most of our other phones and a lot of the heavy hitters. In fact, it's a 1080p display. It's an AMOLED, sure. We could knock against it, but we should also know that OnePlus has had this reputation for blazingly fast design or performance in the last 2 generations. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the GPU is not really pushing or expending itself trying to push all these pixels. That could be a negative and it could be a positive depending on how you look at it. You have the latest Snapdragon 845 with the latest Adreno processor, or the latest Adreno GPU, which is the 630. It comes with either 6 or 8 gigs of RAM, depending on which variation you order. It comes from a 64 gigs up to a 256 gigs of storage. Going back to the RAM thing, I'm still really confused with this. I don't know why we need that much RAM on Android, and I can't figure it out, because the more every iteration of Android that comes out, Google is aggressively attacking the way multitasking is handled and how processes exist in the background. So I'm not sure what the hell is all this RAM supposed to be doing. For Samsung, yes, if I could, I would have a 32 gigabyte RAM Samsung phone, because God knows it needs it to lift that heavy UI. But here, their Oxygen UI isn't really known to be heavy. So I don't know, whatever. For you you spec whores out there, 8 gigs of RAM, there you go, jump over the fence. 3300 milliamp battery on the small side, but then again, they have that dash charging, and that thing is notoriously fast. So that's okay. There's some waterproofing here. They didn't commit to any particular rating, 67 or 68, which means do not jump in the pool with this thing. It should be okay in rain and whatnot. You know, you can get some sprinkles on it. So that's also dope. Looking at the camera, it's got the dual camera thing going on. Who doesn't these days? Interestingly enough, there's a 16 megapixel camera, which is it's stabilized. There's a 20 megapixel camera that is not stabilized. And the weirdness here that I think this is a first, we've never seen this, both those rear cameras have the same focal length. Usually you'll see the second one will be sort of a telephoto lens, or it'll be a super wide angle. I don't know what this is here, but I don't know, it's weird. It is what it is. So I think that's pretty much the big picture of this phone. There are some quote unquote disappointments, and this is a thing with OnePlus. You know, never settle, and they've always challenged a lot of the flagships, and you have to sort of put yourselves in their shoes and respect what they're doing. They're trying to give you the most value for your buck, and they make these very tasteful decisions on the corners they cut. And I quite like that about the company. In the last few iterations of OnePlus, I think they lost a lot of that essence. But in today's world, where this phone is coming in at about $600, and a lot of the other flagships are $1,000 and up, you can sort of see the value in this phone or their mission here yet again. So one of these disappointments, I mentioned it, would be the display. But the display also has this other side of it where, because it's not taxing the CPU, you get this better performance, you get this better battery life, which then is a segue to, well, the battery's small. Well, then it's not really pushing the number one offender of all the flagships to what actually drains the battery in the first place, so you'll be okay there. There's no wireless charging. Get over it. I mean, some people will crucify me. You know, wireless charging saved my marriage. Sure, it's not here, so that's a corner that they cut. But ultimately, I think they did a really good job at offering a lot and still kind of leading in some aspects. You know, if you look at the software wise, OnePlus is usually up there in terms of the adoption for the new version of Android. So that's dope. They're up there, 8 gigs of RAM. You want it, that's dope. They got a headphone jack. I gotta say that's dope. You know, there's a lot about it that's really cool. I think this is one of the better OnePlus phones that we've seen in recent years. I think it lives up to their mantra a lot better than some of the other phones before it. I think it's cool. Will I buy it? Would I buy it at $600? Yeah, sure, I would. I don't see why not. But I want to know if you guys would buy it at $600. I want to know what you think, especially if you pair it to something like the late to market G7. What do you guys think there? Leave a comment in the section below. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. We always have content coming. And again, my name is Ramon, and I'm out of here. Peace. Well, I guess, and the reason we started Lifestyles Defined is because if we weren't on camera arguing about these things, the technologies, the phones, the iPhones, the Androids, the cameras, the games, we'd be on the phone arguing about it. We'd be in each other's houses arguing about it. So why not just put it in front of a camera for everyone to enjoy it the way we do? That's what Lifestyles Defined is all about. We just love this shit.